The next morning, I'm like, wow, this time nothing happened. I slept normal. I woke up 7 hours later. I go to work. I'm researching, reading a paper. Suddenly, I can't see the paper. I'm like, oh my God, what just happened to me? On the subject of experiments, so I've been running a very extreme experiment with pig brains recently.
Oh, yeah.
It has been quite extreme. I haven't really told you guys about it, even privately.
How many milliliters are you up to now?
No, I've stopped. No, it's over. So I will tell you guys the conclusion of the experiment. Yeah. So to give the audience a bit of background, so there's growth factors in the body everywhere, and then there's growth factors in the brain. And the growth factors in the brain, it seems, when they're elevated, they provide an antidepressant and anxiolytic, meaning reducing anxiety effect. And it seems that a lot of antidepressants in psychiatry rely on this in order to treat depression and anxiety. The problem is a lot of those antidepressants cause sexual dysfunction. So because of this reason, and because I'm quite afraid of neurodegenerative disease, and I've been curious about how to increase the amount of growth factors I have in my brain to prevent dementia in the long term, because growth factors are also neuroprotective. They protect cells in the brain from death. And one hallmark of all dementias is a loss of cells in the brain. That's where you actually stop. So neurogenesis is a very interesting subject. So I in an effort to find compounds that could be neurogenic but not cause sexual dysfunction, I searched through a lot of research. I eventually came across only 2 drugs that are in production that are viable. One of them was cerebrolysin. Cerebrolysin is purified pig brains, basically, and not brains in general, but specifically the purified growth factors of the brain. Specifically, nerve growth factor that Connor Murphy was looking for in the semen, as well as brain-derived neurotrophic factor, glial cell-derived neurotrophic factor, and really a lot of the growth factors you want. So this is given mostly in Eastern Europe for the treatment of acute brain injuries, traumatic brain injury, like what you'd get in a fight, or a stroke. So what they do usually in those studies is they inject 5 to 10 milliliters of cerebrolysin, which is water-based, into either muscle or the vasculature. And they do this over like 5 days in a row or a little bit longer while someone's in the hospital. And they do this only acutely. They never did it chronically. So what I did was I bought some from cosmicnootropic.com, where I now have a discount code called Leo, which I don't make money off of. I just buy my own cerebrolysin from there. So just so you guys to know. But anyway, you can use that discount code to get a cheaper one. But the point is, I bought some cerebrolysin for myself. They came in 2 milliliter ampules, 5 milliliter ampules, 10 milliliter ampules. I bought the 2 milliliter, well, actually, I originally bought the 5 milliliter ones, but it's a stupid idea. So if you buy a bigger one, just so you know, if you put it in a syringe and leave it in the fridge, it oxidizes and it does not work fully. It took me a long time to realize this, by the way. So just to save anyone that problem. So if you want to only inject 2 milliliters, you buy the 2 milliliter ampules. So eventually, what I would do is I would inject 2 milliliters every 3 days or 2 days, and I was able to replicate the effect of an SSRI, the actual feeling of an SSRI, months down the line. Because an SSRI takes 2 problems with it. It takes 6 to 7 months to work. So what happened to me specifically was I got off all of my medications when I chose to have a child, because I didn't want my epigenetics to be that affected. Of course, they can't totally reverse, but it's reverse a little bit of it. When I stopped and I decided to go back on the SSRI, well, it takes 3 months or so to work. So it was the perfect time for me to try the cerebrolysin. So that's when I started trying it, and it did work. But then an interesting thing happened. So there's a compound many of the audience probably knows about called Ibogaine. Ibogaine is a unique compound that's psychoactive because it's the only compound ever known that can inhibit the withdrawals of a heroin addict. And it's not known how it does that. It's not clear. So I've used Ibogaine before historically, many times. And I wanted to research, beginning like 3 years ago. So I wanted to research, why did Ibogaine actually cause these inhibition of withdrawals? So this is all before the cerebrolysin experiment. A year ago or so, I found out that Ibogaine, reading a recent paper, only at the flood dose. By the way, guys, Ibogaine, when you take a low dose, a heroin addict, his withdrawals still come. Only at the flood dose, the huge mega doses, the withdrawals totally inhibited. Well, when I read the research papers, I found out what? At the flood doses of Ibogaine for rodents, it upregulated the BDNF protein, brain-derived neurotrophic factor protein, for weeks afterwards. Whereas the normal dose didn't do that. So I said, wait a minute, is it neurogenesis? Then I forgot the issue. I had a client who was addicted to opiates. He used Ibogaine. I gave him some advice about how to use it. He used it, got off opiates, had no withdrawal. Then he slipped up a couple of weeks later. But he had some Cerebrolysin on hand because I told him to use it after the Ibogaine to keep his mood up and neurogenesis up. He was embarrassed to tell me that he screwed up with the Ibogaine. So he went and took the Cerebrolysin on his own without asking me and took 50 milliliters of Cerebrolysin injected in one day. 50. Injected it all in himself and tried to quit again. Zero withdrawal. He discovered something unbelievable. Then, 2 weeks later, he slipped again. 2 weeks later, he injected this time as the protocols do in the studies. Because he spoke to me in between, and we talked about it. And he just on his own changed the thing. Did 5 milliliters one day, 5 milliliters the second day. Did it for 5 days. Cut down his opiate midway, half, totally out. And then midway, he's totally out of the opiates and had no withdrawal again. So I said, God damn, this guy changed the world. This is a shocking discovery. So then I started taking the mega doses of Cerebrolysin, 5 milliliters, 10 milliliters, trying to see what is the effect. What does it feel like? Of course, I'm not addicted to opiates, but I need to know what is going on. And it is an overwhelming neurogenesis, something I've never felt before. It's like an SSRI after 8 months at the max dose, more than that. It's so much neurogenesis. By the way, guys, neurogenesis gives you brain fog when you have it. It's not like inflammation, but it also gives you brain fog. So it's so much neurogenesis that you could be trying to work and you can't even see the computer. That's what was happening to me. I couldn't see sometimes. Oh, I couldn't see sometimes. I had to go sleep for 12 hours, 14 hours, wake up feeling amazing. Amazing. I would tell you, like, if I went through a difficult, like I had a hard work month and I didn't recover well, instead of taking some growth hormone and recovering or marijuana, I would take some Cerebrolysin and rest and recover. 10 hours, sleep 10 hours. You wake up, maybe you'll have a bit of brain fog the next day, but the day after you feel so refreshed. And that's because of that actual growth in your body. Like when you take high dose growth hormone, you sleep deep.
Yeah.
It's similar to that feeling. It's similar to that, but it's
very therapeutic.
It's so and it kills all that.
Would it be feasible to do like 5 milliliters every Saturday if you have Sunday relaxing? You know,
extremely feasible. Extremely. That's what I'm talking about. And
I need
also,
some of this.
Also, now I just want to mention some caveats. So just for people to understand, what is the concern with this? It's so powerful that it's not like an SSRI. So we know with SSRIs, they increase neurogenesis over 30 years. They don't cause brain cancers. But this hasn't been tested consistently for 30 years. And if you're using 5 milliliters, you're getting huge amounts of growth. So if you're prone to brain cancers, potentially you could get a brain cancer. Now, brain cancers are very rare. This is far less likely. Yeah. And far less likely than if you took 4 units of growth hormone that you would get melanoma or something like that. But still, it's just to mention there. I'm not that scared of it, as you can see, and I'm very scared of my health. But I just wanted to mention, to be ethical, that this could potentially happen. Who knows? It's never happened in the literature, but it could happen. And the
other
other
than
thing
feeling good. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So the last thing I wanted to mention is why I stopped using it right now is that if you use it too often, I believe that you develop antibodies to it. And so you have to take a break. You start to feel a little sick. Like it, because you can feel it. So you took 2 months. So I noticed this. It took me like 2 months of taking a lot, but yeah.
So same as with the porcine insulin, you know, where you get some sort of autoimmune response. So I was wondering if you could use it intermittently just to kind of repair, basically, you know, and then maybe 5 milliliters once a week or every other week or something like that, because we're all under tremendous amount of workload. And people probably don't understand how much workload we're under. But
the 5 milliliters provides a lasting, it has like it stays with you, the effect, the neurogenesis for a few days. Yeah, so it's good.
Is it about a week or
3 days if it's one of them or something like that? But it's enough. If you're doing it every week, your life will be better. It's that, and there's no sexual side effect. It's clean. You know, I don't know if you could do it every week without any inflammatory response, but you could certainly do it once a month for 3 days for sure. Or, you know,
right. So and other than be the time you kind of kick back and you know, take a break from work because the brain fog would make you less productive.
Yeah, just that morning, exactly. But then you'll be so much more productive after. It's unbelievable. Honestly, of all the drugs I've ever used in my life, this has been one of the most valuable. So some of the most valuable ones, I mean, other than protective drugs like ARBs or something like that, the ones that changed my life in a very valuable way, I can see SSRIs did, amphetamines did, and with the restrictions of low dose and all that. Cerebrolysin, it didn't change my life because I was already benefited from it. But if I had this years ago, bro, Oh my God. It could have, I had neurological damage. I mean, I used actual SSRIs, high dose, to actually cure neurological damage with a beta block. It worked. If I had cerebrolysin, I could have done it. And let's talk about bigger things. What about powerlifters who are go training, tax their nervous system? They're going injecting growth hormone at home. Why aren't you injecting cerebrolysin? That's nerve growth factor.
That's the category that I'm following in, because I trained a failure for 20 years straight. And I honestly think I have some neurological damage from that as well, because I keep mixing up words. Yeah, it's very obvious on my YouTube videos.
No, it's not.
I edit most of it out, but but I think I think it's a training to failure that caused something impairment, and I would like to fix that with not training to failure anymore, and maybe use some cerebrolysin. And if there's if it takes a while to build up some sort of autoimmune response, and you use it intermittently, 5 milliliters per week, I would definitely do that. It's basically a colostrum that works, right? An injectable colostrum that works.
What's colostrum?
It's at the growth factor from the beef. And you use it as a supplement, and then every 10 years it comes, colostrum, IGF-1. And then it comes out, and then 10 years later it comes back,
Oh yeah, this thing works like a mother. It's really, really, like, you can't doubt it. You inject it the same day, you're like, oh, this is new. In fact, sometimes it's funny. You'll inject it in a place that'll cause a depot, so you won't feel it. You go to sleep, sometimes it won't hit you. And you inject it, and then that's why I realized not to inject big amounts in one place, because these depots happen, and then it hits you at the wrong time. So the next morning, this happened to me once. The next morning, I'm like, wow, this time nothing happened. I slept normal. I woke up 7 hours later. I go to work. I'm researching, reading a paper. Suddenly, I can't see the paper. I'm like, oh my God, what just happened to me? And it just hit me. It just released. I don't know how it released. I was just sitting, and I couldn't see anything. I had to go sit down on the couch. I told my wife, I got to go lay down. So I went back to bed.
So would subcutaneous, like, you space out your, let's say you have 5 milliliters, would like 5 subcutaneous injections of 1 milliliter would be the suitable protocol before bed?
That would be the ideal protocol. But what I've been doing personally is I've been splitting it between 2 or maximum 3 and injecting them in a low body fat place close to my head area, because I know there's a localized effect. So I don't want my glutes to become nervously strong. So what I would do is inject in a muscle you're injured in, or inject closer to your head. So I inject here and here.
So we talked about this protocol with the pyknotropic factor and BPC 157, TB 500, and growth hormone locally in an area we want to improve.
Yeah, I've injected BPC in all kinds of places. It's pretty crazy. It does have local effects, but it's very scary, the cancer potential effect. So one other things I wanted to mention, the other experiment I'm running right now, I've been taking low dose naltrexone therapy. So do you guys know about naltrexone? It's
anti-inflammatory, right?
Yeah.
It is an anti-inflammatory actually, but it's an opioid receptor antagonist. So it's given to heroin addicts as well as alcoholics, interestingly, for the treatment of when they quit heroin, to inhibit their pleasure if they used heroin, as well as to slightly, hopefully, reduce their urges. So it does this for alcoholics too, because apparently when you block opiate receptors, you reduce the pleasure and the desire for alcohol, interestingly. Now, so the thing is, if you block the opiate, I wanted to mention a couple of things. So throughout all my drug experimentation in my life, probably because I grew up with a mother who had chronic pain, I was always very careful about using opiates. So I experimented with every opiate except what's that one that kills people? Fentanyl. Every other one I've tried at least once, but only once. And that's intentional. I have discipline. I'm not a stupid guy. And I know these things are two things. Number one, that they can be crazy addictive. They cause dependency. Yeah. But number two, another thing, and this is the real reason that scared me, was that I saw my mother dealing with chronic pain all the time. And I just thought this intuitively. I didn't know if I was wrong. I thought that if I use opiates, maybe I'll desensitize myself to them. And one day I'll have real pain and I won't be able to treat it. I didn't know if this is true or not. Recently, I did a bunch of research and I found out actually that is true. And opiate receptors downregulate when you agonize them. And over time, opiate users, not all of them, but the majority, have to escalate the dose they use to treat the pain, real chronic pain. They have to escalate it over time. And that's why kidneys become an issue over time, is that it does do that. So it does that. And Not only that, but blocking them, both partially and fully, upregulates them not only acutely, but chronically, such that now there is a kind of treatment called low-dose naltrexone therapy. So full dose is 50 milligrams, 25 milligrams, it blocks all the opiate receptors. 4.5 milligrams blocks them for a short, it has a shorter half-life in the body. It blocks them for a shorter time period and less aggressively. When it does this, it causes an upregulation of opioid receptors chronically to the point where it actually downregulates sensations of pain. So people who have actual chronic pain can take low-dose naltrexone therapy when it's not too bad, their chronic pain, where they need extreme opiates. They can take the low-dose opiate antagonist and reduce the pain. The real reason I'm taking it is because not only does it do that, but it improves, not just reduces, improves the function of the immune system, improves the immune system's ability to fight viruses and bacteria, but also reduces autoimmune activities. So it improves the function of the immune system, and it has an anti-cancer element because of that. So it may kill cancer tumors.
But naltrexone falls into the category of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, or did I misresearch that? No,
no. It's a opioid receptor ligand for the mu, kappa, and delta opioid receptor.
Okay, so it's different. Okay.
Yeah, but it is anti-inflammatory because of this reason. I was surprised you knew that. Yeah, this is recent research.
No, I started reading up about it. When we go over the clip things that we want to discuss. So I did read up on it. I was wondering if it could be used as a method to go through chronic injuries, like you mentioned, because a lot of the bodybuilders, they of course, they would result to, what is it called? The non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug that a lot of people take, and then lead to kidney issues later. Ibuprofen, right? So a lot of people result to ibuprofen, and we all stay away from that as much as we can because we don't want this cascade into kidney issues. So maybe this naltrexone could be a suitable replacement for the people who are in chronic pain because their training intensity is so high. That's what I was wondering.
Maybe if they combined it with free radical scavengers and an immunomodulator like EPA, high-dose EPA, or if they take another immunomodulator like an actual pharmacologic TNF alpha blocker or something like that. But I mean, it's not that powerful, the low-dose naltrexone therapy. I've taken it. I mean, I don't have pain, so I can't really tell. But my thing is, it's an insurance policy because at some point I'm going to have chronic pain. So why don't I make sure these receptors are as upregulated as possible? Because I'll tell you, my policy before served me well. When I got the Crohn's disease, it was crippling pain for 8 months. I mean, I couldn't sit down physically, so I couldn't sit at all, and I sometimes couldn't stand. So it was like really messed up, and it was crippling pain. But because I had no tolerance, I could sometimes take 2.5 milligrams of oxycodone or 5 milligrams, and that would be way more than enough. And I didn't have to take it every day.